Elvis Presley's early hits and Patsy Cline's timeless melodies have one thing in common: the extraordinary guitar playing of a silent genius. His name was Hank Garland, a prodigy who shaped the sound of a generation. He was Nashville's top guitarist, on the cusp of greatness, until a tragic car accident took it all away in an instant. This is the story of Hank Garland, one of music's greatest and most forgotten talents, whose career rose and fell, leaving behind a legacy nearly erased by fate. To understand the unparalleled brilliance of Hank Garland, you have to journey back to the humble beginnings that shaped his extraordinary talent. He was born Walter Lewis Garland on November 11, 1930, in a small town called Cowpens, South Carolina. The name itself, Cowpens, evokes a simpler, more agrarian time. This was the rural American South steeped in tradition, gospel music, and the burgeoning sounds of blues and nascent country. The Great Depression was still casting its long shadow, making life a struggle for most families. But in these challenging times, music often served as both an escape and a profound source of community and joy. For young Hank, music wasn't just a pastime, it was an obsession. He wasn't born into a musical dynasty, but the seeds of his genius were evident almost from the moment he could hold an instrument. He picked up his first guitar at the impossibly young age of 6. It wasn't a fancy factory-made instrument. It was likely a battered, hand-me-down acoustic, perhaps missing a string or two. But in Hank's hands it became a portal. He possessed an innate, almost supernatural ability to hear a melody and instantly reproduce it, to understand the intricate architecture of a chord and bend it to his will. Formal lessons were a luxury his family couldn't afford, so Hank's education was forged in the crucible of raw talent and tireless self-instruction. He'd listen to the radio, soak up every blues lick, every country twang, every gospel chord, and then meticulously work it out on his own guitar, hour after hour, day after day. By the time he was a teenager, Hank was already a local legend. His fingers moved across the fretboard with a speed and precision that belied his youth. He wasn't just playing songs, he was weaving intricate musical tapestries, improvising with a fluidity that was simply unheard of for someone his age. His prodigy status was cemented by a now famous encounter. The legendary musician Arthur Guitar Boogie Smith had offered a public reward to anyone who could replicate a complex banjo lick on his hit record, Banjo Boogie, which he himself was struggling to reproduce. A 15-year-old Hank Garland walked in, played the lick flawlessly, collected the reward, and earned a regular spot on Smith's popular radio show. This was not just a display of talent, it was a declaration. The boy wonder was ready for a bigger stage. His family, recognizing his extraordinary gift, made a brave and life-altering decision. At the tender age of 15, Hank packed his guitar and, with the blessings of his parents, headed for the glittering, promising lights of Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville in the mid-1940s. It was a bustling, dusty, yet electrifying hub for country music. The Grand Ole Opry was broadcasting live across the nation, creating household names and shaping the sound of a generation. Honky-tonk bars throbbed with live music, and every street corner seemed to echo with the twang of a guitar or the wail of a steel guitar. It was a magnet for aspiring musicians, each hoping to catch their big break. For a skinny kid from Cowpens, South Carolina, it must have been both exhilarating and terrifying. Hank arrived in Nashville with little more than his guitar and an unshakable belief in his own talent. He was too young to legally play in most of the bars, but his reputation preceded him. Word of the boy wonder with the lightning-fast fingers spread like wildfire. Soon he was finding work, initially as a sideman in various local bands, learning the ropes, observing the masters, and tirelessly honing his craft. He absorbed everything: country, blues, jazz, pop. His musical vocabulary was expanding at an astonishing rate. His big break came, almost serendipitously, when he was just 16 years old. One night, while playing a gig, he was spotted by Paul Howard, leader of the popular Western swing outfit, the Arkansas Cotton Pickers. Howard was immediately captivated by Hank's virtuosity. He hired the young phenom on the spot, but Hank was underage. To circumvent this, Howard had to literally put Hank in a guitar case to sneak him into some venues. True or not, it speaks to the almost mythical quality of Hank's early talent. With the Arkansas Cotton Pickers, Hank quickly established himself as a force to be reckoned with. His solos were dazzling, his rhythm playing impeccable. He became a fixture on the Grand Ole Opry, a regular on the most famous stage in country music. He wasn't just a sideman anymore. He was a featured performer, his name becoming synonymous with incredible guitar playing. But Hank Garland wasn't content to simply master one genre. He had a restless musical spirit, an insatiable curiosity that pushed him beyond the boundaries of traditional country. He listened to jazz greats like Charlie Christian and George Barnes, absorbing their complex improvisational techniques and their sophisticated harmonic language. He wanted to fuse the raw honesty of country with the intricate artistry of jazz. This ambition set him apart. While many of his peers were content to stay within the familiar confines of country music, Hank was constantly pushing, experimenting, evolving. This open-mindedness would make him one of the most versatile and in-demand session guitarists in the burgeoning Nashville recording scene. The 1950s in Nashville was a transformative decade, not just for country music, but for American popular music as a whole. Elvis Presley exploded onto the scene, igniting the fuse of rock and roll. Pop music began to embrace country elements, creating new hybrid genres. And at the heart of this musical revolution were the session musicians, the unsung heroes who played on countless records, shaping the sounds that became etched into our collective memory. And at the very top of that elite group was Hank Garland. His reputation grew exponentially. He wasn't just good, he was consistently brilliant, a one-take wonder who could adapt his style to any genre, any artist, any producer's vision. If you were a major star recording in Nashville, you wanted Hank Garland on your session. His phone never stopped ringing. He became part of Nashville's legendary A-team of session musicians, a small, tight-knit group of virtuosos who played on thousands of hit records. His guitar work is the secret ingredient on some of the most iconic songs of the era. He played the pulsing, unforgettable riff on Brenda Lee's Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, the soulful tremolo guitar on Roy Orbison's Dream Baby, and the driving rhythm on Marty Robbins' Don't Worry, which famously featured the first ever use of a fuzz effect on guitar. He was on Don Gibson's Oh Lonesome Me, and his playing anchored countless hits for the Everly Brothers. If a song came out of Nashville in the late 50s and had a guitar part that made you stop and listen, the odds were high that it was Hank Garland. But Hank's ambition stretched beyond session work. He yearned to express his full musical vision, particularly his love for jazz. In 1961, he released his seminal jazz album, Jazz Winds from a New Direction. This album was a revelation. It showcased Hank not just as a technically brilliant guitarist, but as a sophisticated jazz improviser, a true artist capable of intricate melodic invention and harmonic complexity. It was an album that defied categorization, a bold statement from a musician who refused to be confined by genre labels. Critics raved. Fellow musicians were awestruck. It was clear that Hank Garland was on the cusp of an entirely new phase of his career, ready to take his place among the jazz guitar greats like Wes Montgomery and Joe Pass. To understand the album's significance, one only needs to look at the musicians who joined him. An 18-year-old vibraphone prodigy named Gary Burton, legendary bassist Joe Benjamin, and, most astonishingly, Joe Morello, the iconic drummer from the Dave Brubeck Quartet, famous for his work on Take 5. This was not a country artist dabbling in jazz. This was a statement. The album put the jazz world on notice and has since influenced generations of guitarists, including greats like George Benson, who have praised its virtuosity and forward-thinking sound. His star was burning brighter than ever. He was at the absolute peak of his powers, a master of country, a rising force in jazz, admired by peers, in demand by legends. The future seemed boundless, filled with endless musical possibilities. And then, in a single devastating moment, it all came crashing down. The music stopped. The illustrious career, the endless future, the golden touch, all vanished in a flash of metal and shattered glass. On September 11th, 1961, Hank Garland was driving down a suburban Nashville road. The details of the accident remain hazy, shrouded in conflicting accounts and speculation. While officially a car accident, persistent and dark rumors have swirled for decades that the crash was not accidental. These unproven theories suggest that Garland may have been deliberately targeted, possibly due to a dispute with a powerful figure in the Nashville music establishment after discovering financial misdealings. This layer of mystery adds a tragic, noir-like quality to his story, though no official investigation ever confirmed foul play. Some say it was an accidental collision with another car, while others whisper of more mysterious, even intentional causes. But whatever the truth, the consequences were undeniable, as clear as the sound of shattering glass in the night. The horrific impact flipped Hank's car, leaving him in critical condition. His head slammed into a hard surface, causing severe brain damage along with other injuries to his body. The man who had once set the music world on its knees, with fingers that seemed made for dancing across guitar strings, now lay motionless in a hospital, fighting for his life. He had been in a coma for months, trapped in a dream world where music no longer resonated. When Hank finally awoke, his eyes seemed hollow, lacking the fire that once burned in his soul. The vibrant genius who had created timeless tunes in the studio, who had captivated audiences with his Jazz Winds from a New Direction album, was now a pale shadow of himself. He could no longer play the guitar, the instrument that had been an extension of his soul. Basic motor skills had become a struggle. His memory was scrambled, his memories of performances, notes, and moments of glory now fragmented. Worse still, his personality, his wit, his enthusiasm, his confidence seemed to have been taken away from him as well, leaving Hank Garland estranged from his family and friends. The Nashville music community, where Hank had been a shining star, was in shock and grief. The loss was not just the loss of a talent, but the fall of an icon, a man who had defined an entire musical era. For Hank, the tragedy was even more profound, because music was more than just his profession. It was who he was, how he communicated with the world, how he breathed. Hank's journey to recovery was long, painful, and challenging. He spent years in hospitals and rehabilitation centers where doctors and specialists tried to help him regain even a small part of his lost abilities. His devoted wife, Evelyn, became his rock, never giving up hope. She spent hours with him, encouraging him, caring for him through his darkest days. Hank's brother, Billy, also a musician, brought him a guitar and patiently guided him, hoping to rekindle the musical fire that once burned within Hank. But his efforts often brought only pain. There were moments, both touching and heartbreaking, when Hank sat quietly at his guitar, looking down at the strings that had once been his close companion. His fingers, which had flowed like the wind, creating complex and emotional melodies, now trembled and fumbled, unable to play a simple chord. The despair was palpable on his face, a deep despair, as if he were trying to speak a language he had forgotten. For a man who lived and breathed music, being deprived of his ability to create was like being imprisoned in his own body. The melodies that once flowed freely like rivers were now blocked. Jazz winds. From a new direction, the work that had propelled Hank to new heights was now a distant memory. The maestro who had led the band with confidence and natural talent was gone, leaving an unfillable void in the hearts of those who loved him. But even in the darkness, Hank's story held a small glimmer of light, of resilience, of family love, and of the relentless effort to find himself, even if it was just a small part of him. The personal stories and emotional impact of Hank Garland's accident are deeply painful, yet they illuminate the profound human costs behind the music industry's relentless churn. For Hank, the accident wasn't just the end of a career, it was the shattering of an identity, the loss of self. As his brother Billy Garland later recounted, Hank suffered not only physical brain damage, but also a profound psychological trauma. He struggled with severe depression, confusion, and an almost unbearable sense of loss for the musician he once was. One of the most heart-wrenching aspects of his recovery was the almost complete memory loss of his musical abilities. He knew he was a musician, but he couldn't recall how to play, couldn't access the vast library of licks, chords, and improvisational genius stored in his mind. Billy Garland tried a desperate, loving experiment. He would play Hank's own records for him, hoping to spark a memory, to awaken something within. Hank would listen intently, his head cocked, and often say, "That's a good guitar player." Who is that? The realization that he was listening to himself and couldn't recognize his own unparalleled skill was a crushing blow. This disconnect between his past self and his present reality was a constant source of pain. His family, especially his wife Evelyn and brother Billy, bore an immense burden. They fought tirelessly for him, advocating for his care and trying to bring him back. Billy, in particular, dedicated years of his life to Hank's rehabilitation, often against the advice of doctors who said his condition was irreversible. Billy believed in the power of music, and he believed in Hank. He famously crafted a custom guitar with a shorter scale, hoping it would be easier for Hank's damaged hands to manage. He would sit with Hank for hours, patiently guiding his fingers, trying to reteach him the very basics he had mastered as a child. In a testament to his and his brother Billy's perseverance, Hank did manage to record again. In 1968, he released the album The Unforgettable Guitar of Hank Garland. While these recordings showcased flashes of his former self, they also bore the heartbreaking signs of his limitations. For those who knew his work, it was both a triumphant return and a painful reminder of the effortless genius that had been lost. These were acts of profound love and unwavering hope, even in the face of overwhelming odds. For a brief, tantalizing period in the late 1960s, there were glimmers of hope. With Billy's relentless dedication, Hank did begin to make some progress. He could play simple melodies, rudimentary chords. He even managed to record a few tracks, though they lacked the effortless brilliance of his earlier work. These recordings, while imperfect, were a monumental triumph of the human spirit. They represented a courageous attempt to reclaim a lost past, a testament to the enduring power of music to heal, even if only partially. But ultimately, the full scope of his genius, the lightning-fast fingers, and the improvisational mastery never truly returned. The damage was too severe. The emotional toll on Hank must have been unimaginable. To have glimpsed the peak of your powers, to have achieved such mastery, and then to have it brutally ripped away, leaving only fragments and echoes. It's a form of suffering that transcends physical pain. He was a man defined by his music, and when the music stopped, a part of him died. He spent the remainder of his life grappling with the aftermath, a silent testament to a life dramatically altered, a genius tragically silenced. The consequences and historical significance of Hank Garland's life and its abrupt tragic interruption are profound and far-reaching, reverberating through the annals of American music to this very day. His story is not just a personal tragedy, it's a critical missing chapter in the narrative of musical innovation. Firstly, his work as a session guitarist fundamentally shaped the sound of an era. The records he played on for Elvis, Patsy Cline, the Everly Brothers, and countless others are not merely classics. They are foundational texts of rock and roll, country, and pop music. Hank's distinct blend of jazz sophistication, country twang, and bluesy improvisation didn't just accompany these stars. It defined their sound. His solos were instantly recognizable, his rhythm playing impeccable, his musical ideas fresh and groundbreaking. Without Hank Garland, the soundscape of the late 1950s and early 1960s would have been undeniably different and arguably far less rich. He was a silent architect of cultural identity, his fingers literally composing the soundtrack to a generation's awakening. Secondly, his album Jazz Winds from a New Direction stands as a monumental, albeit tragically incomplete testament to his potential as a jazz innovator. Had his career continued, there is little doubt that Hank Garland would be celebrated today alongside the likes of Pat Martino, Joe Pass, and Wes Montgomery as one of the greatest jazz guitarists of all time. His contributions to the genre were not just technically brilliant, they were emotionally resonant and harmonically daring. The accident robbed the world of countless more groundbreaking jazz recordings and pushed a potential giant into the realm of what if. His album remains a tantalizing glimpse into a future that never was, a testament to a genius unfulfilled. Beyond his direct musical contributions, Hank Garland's story serves as a poignant cautionary tale about the fragility of talent and the human cost of the relentless, often unforgiving music industry. It highlights the vulnerability of artists, particularly those who operate behind the scenes, whose immense contributions can be overlooked in the pursuit of star power. His life reminds us that genius, however profound, can be extinguished in an instant, leaving behind only echoes and unfulfilled potential. It forces us to ask critical questions about how we value and support creative individuals, and how we grapple with the uncomfortable realities of mental and physical health crises in a profession that often demands superhuman resilience. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, Hank Garland's legacy is a call to rediscovery. His story compels us to dig deeper, to look beyond the famous names, and to acknowledge the often unseen architects of the sounds we cherish. It's a reminder that the history of music is far richer and more complex than the mainstream narratives often suggest. By celebrating Hank Garland, we're not just honoring a forgotten individual, we're reclaiming a vital piece of our musical heritage, ensuring that the incredible talents of the unsung heroes are finally given their rightful place in the spotlight. His music, even the fragments that remain, continues to inspire guitarists today, a testament to his timeless skill and undeniable soul. Beyond his recordings, Garland's legacy is literally built into the history of the guitar itself. In the mid-1950s, he and fellow Nashville guitarist Billy Bird collaborated with the Gibson Guitar Company to design a new thinner, more modern electric guitar suitable for studio work. The result was the legendary Gibson Birdland, a guitar celebrated for its playability and sophisticated tone, which remains a classic and sought-after instrument to this day. He didn't just play the music, he helped create the tools that made the music possible. The story of Hank Garland is one of music's greatest tragedies, an extraordinary genius whose career was snuffed out at the height of its glory. He may have been a forgotten giant, but his light will forever shine through in the classic songs we love.